Hi there, Leigh Farnell here from Leading Your Best Life. In this episode, it really is a fantastic interview with Karen Monaghan of Our Kinds. And I bumped into Karen. Look, I'll tell you what, I won't go into it. Stay tuned, really fascinating. Get your notebook out because not only do you learn about business and leadership in this one, but also how Karen manages her day and designs her future. So there's so much great content in here about how you can lead your best life. Stay tuned. Hi folks, this is going to be a fantastic Leading Your Best Life podcast. I'm talking to Karen Monaghan, and by the way, when you hear what she's up to in terms of mission and disposable cups, Karen, welcome aboard to Leading Your Best Life.
Thanks a million, Leigh. I'm excited.
Well, Karen, as you know, this all came about because you saw a photo of me, I think, with my non-disposable coffee cup, and you said, I got to touch base with this guy. So straight away you contacted me via LinkedIn, and we've had a whole range of conversations, and it's led to us getting together today because Leading Your Best Life podcast really is about people interested in life by design. Designing the future, so the best way to predict the future is to create it. And clearly what you're doing with your whole life, but particularly with this project that we want to get into, is life by design, future by design. So I'm looking forward to bouncing around. But Karen, tell us a bit about your background. Where has Karen Monaghan come from? What's been your journey to get to where you are today?
Yeah, well, Karen Monaghan was Karen Maxfield back in the day. And I was the middle child. And so I was thinking about this beforehand. And my father always says to me that as the middle child, what I did was read the environment and looked for the resources that I needed to get to where I wanted to be. I was also an opportunities manager and a little bit of an entrepreneur from a very young age, so kind of selling lemonade on the side of the street when I was allowed to. One thing I've learned later in life, I was really programmed not to ask for any financial support for me. I can ask for it for anyone else, but that's a challenge that I'm working through at the moment as a founder. So I kind of grew up, I guess, problem solving to find what I needed. And I grew up to be a very independent child. I moved out early, lived on my own. I did nursing. I was inspired to do nursing because I had to support my brother who got into some drugs, and I was sitting up with him overnight, making sure he didn't OD. And I think I've always had that practical, definitely heart, always in what I've wanted to do, but also what do we need to do to make sure that we can get to where we want to be, that this person's safe as we get there, all those kinds of things along the way. So I think I was kind of purpose-driven from a very young age, and I have over life grown to be that kind of entrepreneur, but until more recently, the description would be an intrapreneur. So I would be identifying and delivering new opportunities for others mostly.
Okay, so in terms of either study that you've done and a career, different types of organisations you've worked in, give us a bit of background there.
Okay, well, I don't have any qualifications. So I nearly finished nursing but went to go skiing in Europe and worked as a chalet girl in France, one of the best times of my life. And offered a job there and realised I didn't want to mix work and play. So it was a good lesson in life balance, like that was for me, Karen Monaghan of my own energy myself, but it wasn't my work. And so I ended up working in the UK. I couldn't earn enough as a nurse's aide. I hadn't finished my registration. I would get £1.70 an hour at that time.
Wow.
And so I got a job as an assistant to an investment manager, and basically because I had been studying my nursing through college, so I had like maths, etc. But he thought, you're an Aussie, you're travelling on your own, you've just worked in France, you don't speak French very well. You can probably have a crack at anything. And so I guess that was my first sense of, yeah, I can, And so I actually, I was oblivious to it. And this has been a bit of a thing in my career of kind of finding ways forward through unknowns, but not realizing I was living through an unknown. So because I'm visionary. So I have a vision, I can hold the vision and I can move towards it. And it's very clear to me. I can see it, taste it, touch it, feel it. And so at that time, I was working through Big Bang, which is when the UK stock market went from trading on the stock market floor to trading on screen. So here's this Aussie nurse that's just been working as a chalet girl in France, who's speaking to Guernsey and Jersey and all this sort of stuff, placing deals that are then checked with me, etc., and like reconciling records and all that kind of thing, but not making decisions about it. When I came back to Australia after a couple of years, I thought I'd go back into nursing because I loved it. And I've never had any regrets about studying nursing. I use principles from nursing every day. But I decided to go to some agencies and see whether what I'd done in the UK was useful here. And then I learned that I'd actually been trading through Big Bang and that Australia was about to go through that major transition. So I was offered several jobs, and fortunately for me, instead of going into like the back, well, I can't even remember what they call it, but it's like back of house where all the trading kind of admin's done. I got plenty of great jobs offered to me there, but I went into a HR team in a stockbroking firm. And where I was working with a stockbroker there to manage not manage, but administrate their internal superannuation fund. And in my typical way, I figured out how to do that simply and easily, and then took on payroll and a couple of other things as well. So I ended up doing the work of 3 people. My manager from there went to, I won't go through my whole career, but these are some early pivot points. So my manager from there went to National Mutual in group head office. So National Mutual is a large international insurance company, but group head office only had about 100 people in it. And in my role there, working with expatriates, where I was bringing the experience from the UK of working with South Africans in Guernsey and Jersey, etc., I was engaging with the most senior level in the organisation. So I saw how decisions were made and how fast they're made at that level if you give them the right information in the right way and build trust. So I saw how long it can take to build trust and how easy it is to destroy.
Yes. Wow. What a story. Well, first of all, I've got a kind of theory that nurses are incredible people and that the resilience factor, we've got a number of nurses in our pod squad. I call it Nurse Rachel, but I go way, way back to, I remember in my swimming squad, Joanna Stross's mum, Mrs. Stross, was a nurse. And I just saw this strength in this nurse, because I realised they see life, birth, death, blood, guts, all sorts of situations they deal with. And as Nurse Rachel said, and my friend Al Marsh's wife, Helen, is such a calm dude, no matter what's going on. They're nice, calm, and decisive. So now I'm generalising incredibly, but as you say,
their families.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's right. Well, that's all we see.
That's
right. That's it. That's right. How much chocolate they eat and how much alcohol they drink and how many cigarettes they smoke, I don't know. But certainly in terms of resourcefulness, resource states, managing their own mind and managing their own energy and emotions, nurses, it's not dissimilar to, it's a battleground, I'm thinking, an emergency department in particular. Yeah. So you've clearly shown all of that adaptation and resourcefulness, and as you say, whether it be 20 years ago or even today, my daughter, go Aussies overseas. It really is a growing, and the personality of the Aussie and the resourcefulness of the Aussie is appreciated overseas.
Yeah, and I think we approach that with humility generally because we don't own it. It's genuine humility. Yep. So like when I went to ski overseas, I'd been skiing here since I was 4, but I didn't believe that I would be able to ski well in Europe when I went there. But Aussies learn to ski on ice and in bump fields that you can't get out of. And we're skiing over bluffs and edges and all those sorts of things. So, what I found when I went to Europe was actually I was right up there with the others. Yeah. So just bigger and wider and more comfortable.
Yes, yes. Isn't
run.
that amazing? Is that kind of Aussie underestimating how good we are, or that in fact they're flesh and blood just like me. And if you've been skiing since 4, I mean, literally the book I'm reading at the moment is called Peak, which talks about deliberate practice and that the whole idea of 10,000 hours. That you put the time in. If you started at 4, there's a pretty good chance you're going to be half good, if not pretty good, because not many people start at 4 for a start off. The 10,000 hours. Talking of sport, what is that surfboard doing in the corner? Tell me the story of that surfboard.
So the surfboard story, I think, is relevant to this interview for a few reasons. So because we're talking about life, I'll talk about that first. So when I turned 50, I had a major transition in my mindset and consequently in my life as well. So I had torn an area between 2 discs in my back when I was 28 and I was sailing. I grew up on the water with my dad.
So you came originally from Victoria, is that right?
Sydney, originally.
Oh, you came from Sydney.
Grew up mostly in Victoria, but my dad sailed and windsurfed and all those sorts of things. So I was exposed to all of that. Anyway, I hurt my back sailing when I was about 28, and it really wasn't problematic for me until I had kids. And then every now and then my back would go out, and in a big way. And when I turned 50, I was just leaning over one day. It hadn't happened for about 2 years. I was leaning over to brush my teeth and I fainted. And before I fainted, my brain told me that I was about to be in a whole lot of pain, but I hadn't felt it yet. It was like the words came into my head first. And I woke up knowing that I'd done my back. And I thought, I'm 50. I do not want to be a vulnerable older woman. I don't want to break a hip. I don't want my back going out, blah, blah, blah. So I'd always been sporty, but I decided to get fit in a more strategic way and really build my core, etc. And I created what I also have kind of developed as a brand, but a way of speaking about it, and I called it Life Part 2. My folks are in their late 80s now, or my mum is. My dad's a bit younger. And they're both really fit and well. They'll probably live till, 90s, 100, and I have that in my family. So I'll probably live till I'm 100. So I thought, I've got another 50 years. I could do it. I've done a lot in the first 50 years, and I can probably do a lot of that again and other things. I could still learn a language. I could live overseas. I can do all of these things. So how do I make sure that I'm strong and independent enough in every area of my life to be able to do that? And so then I started to do I'd already been kind of deliberate in my career choices, more about where do I want to work and what sort of work do I want to do. But I started to be more deliberate to really see how I could bring everything I'd learnt so far to make great change. And so I got fit, we sold our house and bought a place overlooking the water, rented a place overlooking the water just to see in an apartment, to try a different style of living, etc. So lots of different changes that led to other massive changes. And basically through COVID, etc., has led to me having a pretty blank canvas. I've moved house 7 times, navigating a business in COVID when I moved to WA and the business was launching in Victoria. So it's been, I turned 60 this year, but the last 5 years have been incredible change, and so...
But the surfboard, where does the surfboard come in?
Yeah, so the surfboard. When I turned 50, I learnt to surf.
Oh, good.
So I did a surfing lesson in Indonesia a week, and I also did another week in Hawaii. And then when I had to go back to Victoria during COVID, back from WA to Victoria, I decided to go and live on the coast in Torquay. And I started surfing lessons. I built a little group so we could share the surfing lessons because that's one thing we could do. And I learnt to surf over a year there. Now, what I also learnt was that when you're surfing, a lot of the principles around it are the same as what a CEO of a startup navigates every day.
Yeah.
So you actually have to read the environment before you go into the surf. You look to where the rip is to make sure that you're using the least energy to get out the back to where you need to be. You're waiting for your right turn to do it, depending on your level of ability and the type of wave that's coming through. And then you don't want too big, too small, and you want to get out of the way sometimes and just let it go, and stay safe. And I found that when I was out there were lots of CEOs and innovators and risk takers, etc. But it's about managed risk. It's about how far can I go right now with what I've got.
Nice. How far can I ride the wave with what I've got at my skill level? And as you say, have I got the right board?
Exactly.
Is it too small or is it too big, or all of that? The selection of equipment. No, exactly. The metaphor is fantastic. Well, let's talk about the business that you and I have spoken about, and this business of. You can see the screen.
Yeah.
This is your website. Tell us, why did you call it Our Kinds? And tell us about Our Kinds. And if you want me to move through the site, I'll do that. But tell us firstly, where did the name come from, and what's going on with this website, and what's going on with this business?
Okay, so what I might do is get you to go to About Us, Leigh.
Okay, About Us.
And so Our Kinds came about. This is how my co-founder and I met.
In a coffee shop.
Yeah, I went for a run at about 4:45 one morning, and it started to rain, and I took shelter under this cafe, which happens to be the earliest opening cafe in Perth, I think. Mm-hmm. And music started. Hamish opened the window and offered me a coffee. It was completely unexpected, and so that's how we met and started talking. I'd just returned to Perth and didn't have a network here. So I found out Hamish was an industrial designer, and I said, look, my background, what I've done for most of my career is major event production and experiential marketing, so a big shift from what we were talking about earlier. But I said to Hamish, you'll know the kind of people that I need to meet, so can I catch up with you? Just before I caught up with Hamish, I was having a conversation with my son, who's a barista in Melbourne. And it was during lockdown, and Tom's Cafe didn't offer single-use cups. And he said that people were forgetting their cups. Their mug library had run out. They only had an hour to get out of the house. They're all, upset and stressed, and it's their 1 hour of well-being, and they can't get their coffee from their favourite barista. And they were getting angry and angsty and upset with him. And he's like, Mum, it's so hard here already. I can't,
Stress.
And he said, we need to help people change this habit. And he said, just like we did with supermarket bags. So when I met with Hamish, I thought about it overnight, and I thought, well, I can do that. Like, for years, I'd been taking a latte glass to my local cafe. Sometimes I'd forget it. They'd give it back to me the next day. It'd fit in the car. I enjoyed drinking out of it. It cost $2. Doesn't matter if I lose it. And it's not toxic in landfill or in the ocean. So Tom knew that. He also knew I was a major event producer and worked on delivering change programs for major corporates. And so I went to Hamish and I said, why can't we just design a cup that mirrors the single-use cup in all its principles? It's just simple, because everything I looked at with the reusable cups seemed complicated. And like the latte glass, it's simple, like what Hamish is offering me there. And so initially we thought we'd do something like that, but we did some research first of just, hands-on research with baristas and cafe owners and whatever. And what we found was that there wasn't any model that would be successful until we addressed the 8 major fears of the cafes. So it's, will I lose customers in the transition if someone has to wait too long for a coffee? They'll go to another cafe in the morning for their first coffee. The cafe may not get them back. Will I have enough stock? How do I wash the cups? How do I train my team? How do I develop it? How do I find enough team? There's a shortage of hospitality staff. How do I manage the massive communication load in encouraging people to adopt a new habit? And will I have enough space, and will it cost me more? So we thought, we can't do this on our own, but it's going to fail if we don't. Yeah. So then what we did, we went out and engaged the supply chain, and we work with charities to get op-shop cups at scale. So we get them by the pallet, sort them into sizes for cafes. Everything we do is try to make it easy to adopt this change. We are talking to roasters about introducing reuse sensibilities into their barista training so that when a new barista comes through, they offer takeaway last, whereas the habit at the moment is to assume it's takeaway unless someone specifies differently. We work with Hobart International Leading Dishwashers to create shared dishwasher solutions, because you only need one dishwasher for up to about 30 cafes using these dishwashers.
Wow.
And the dishwashers, just to show some of the big strides we can take with small changes, the dishwasher we have costs $15,000. That's too much for one cafe. But if you're sharing that in Freo, like we do, and we only do it with a few at the moment because we have limited resources, so we just do small trials to see if things work. That can wash 25 cups in 60 seconds, completely dry. So that can service lots of cafes in a day. We can recruit a coffee concierge through a disability service to pick cups up from cafes, wash them and return them back and deliver them back in real time so that they don't need to hold a lot of stock in the cafe. Hamish, who's my co-founder, when I caught up with him last night, I said, how many cups do you reckon you've got in circulation in total in the cafe now? Now, he does over 1,000 coffees a week. He's got 700 cups. They're split between jars that also hold muesli and soup and things like that and cups. So it's very little. He would otherwise use over 50,000 single-use cups and lids in a year. 700 cups. It's pretty outstanding, isn't it?
Oh,
so
look, yeah.
Corner store, he's been 100% reuse for 12 months now.
Wow, because I think, the insanity, every morning I'd see at our coffee shop, Little Sup, the bin is full of disposable cups every morning. I'm just going, this is crazy that every day bins all around Australia and the world are being filled up with these cups. So that's why I'm so supportive of what you're doing. Talk about join the movement. So from a business point of view, but how do you stay afloat? Where does the money come in? What's the business model there? Because it's all very well being a great charity, but as I say, even the Salvation Army needs to make money because you can't go. You have to have money to stay afloat. So what's the model? How does this work?
It's unashamedly commercial. So unless we built sustainability principles into this with everything, including financials, it wouldn't be successful. It wouldn't be sustainable. So our initially we've got to where we are right now through investors. Mm-hmm. So my first investor was someone who invested with me previously, and we've raised nearly $400,000 to run the trials we have over the last 2 years.
Fantastic.
So, and our existing investors, we've got 5, they're sophisticated investors and they invest in milestones. So I let them know what we're doing next and I let them know how we're going. And they really feel a part of it. We'll probably do a crowd fundraise soon, but I'm trying to build awareness so that when we do that, we do it fast, because a lot of these things are really, really resource hungry. I've done a crowd fundraise before. Mm-hmm. And it took 9 weeks and it was grueling. You live it every day for those 9 weeks. Mm. So they're really useful. They help to build a movement. And I think it's a really important part of the investment sort of sector now. And it's absolutely growing. And anyone can get involved in that from $100 up.
Fantastic. And will they see a financial return, or this is just they're investing for a social cause?
No, they will see a return over time. So we've got a subscription model, which is as low as possible for cafes, because that's where all the costs of the transition are. People think that if a cafe is not having to buy single-use cups, they'll save money. Well, they will on that for sure. But there's a lot of costs in terms of adjusting the flow in the cafe, having enough of your team, having a new dishwasher, blah, 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 whatever you need for a particular cafe. So there's a hurdle they've got to get over. So what we're doing is and there's enormous communication support that's required. So we've established a model where we bring in a council, and a council becomes a subscriber, we align our strategy with the WA waste strategy and the waste strategy.
You mean the local councils? So it could be Cottesloe or Bendigo or Fremantle or Bondi or whoever.
Yeah, we did trials with Fremantle and East Fremantle in July 22, and that was great. They supported us in getting 12 cafes on board there. And we've got about 18 cafes around that area at different levels of transition. Some of them have stopped altogether until there's more awareness and more support around it, and others are really just building that change regularly, which is pretty much what it needs to be until there's better awareness.
Right.
So councils pay a subscription. It's a very strategic relationship. We can provide reporting back on that. We've signed up Murdoch University. And with Murdoch University, again, I work with their communications team to build awareness of it all on campus. And then we can clone that model for other universities. And we've also signed up YMCA in Victoria as a corporate subscriber. They have 85 venues. The vision of the CEO is to get all of those venues to 100% reuse. At the moment, I'm engaging with all of the middle management, not all, the middle management that are relevant to this change, to brief them all in, get their feedback on what they require, etc. Then we'll model it out together. We'll get councils on board around those venues, and we'll start to create that change with YMCA. YMCA are then in 120 countries around the world. What we're doing and the way we've approached it actually acts on 14 of the 17 UN Sustainability Development Goals, because we hit the waste production and consumption hard, and it's all measurable. We create new employment, new training for people with disability. We're collaborating with Indigenous communities. We're saving water. We're saving energy. We're improving financial sustainability for cafes, and we're doing it all in partnership. So in terms of what we're doing, we can provide reporting back to corporates who can come on as corporate subscribers, sponsor cafes, sponsor elements into the system, and councils, and that's kind of what makes it all work. So our initial target was 10 councils, 100 cafes, 1,000 corporates. So for every one council, 10 cafes, 10 corporates supporting each cafe. That is starting to prove itself now. And our modelling next year, we look to raise about $7 million through subscriptions, through corporate alone, and that's less than 0.5% of corporates in Australia. Now, when we go into a city building, which is what we're working towards at the moment as well, we go into a building with a building owner, anchor tenants in the cafes, and in some buildings up to 50 tenancies in that building, all of whom can have a corporate subscription and all of whom can then model that out around their offices around Australia and around the world. So everything we're doing is about design. It's about supply chain redesign right down to the individual, and it's about supporting this new reuse habit. So Pia, I can't think of this, Pia Turchinov, who was one of the founders of Venture X HQ, which is all about supporting female founders. When I ran Pia through our pitch deck, she said, you need to add in that you are creating a new habit for the world. And that's our vision. We want to eliminate these cups globally.
A new habit for the world. Yeah. That's, wow. And look at, your energy is just flowing down the Zoom camera here, your energy, your enthusiasm, your passion. As Zig Ziglar says, sales is a transference of emotion. I can feel your energy and your passion and your resourcefulness. But the great thing is it's packaged in and around commercial language. You've talked about pitch deck, and clearly there's a business plan. You've talked about milestones. So is this your expertise or people on your team, or talking about the team, or where was it? All these people you've got on your team here, the expertise you've got, and by the way, artist, business advisor, clearly the business plan, you put those financial milestones in there and all these great brains. How did you recruit these people? Where did they come from, all of these fantastic people?
Well, one of my part of my own IP now is I've got an incredible network. And that started when I was working for Oz Stereo in Canberra in a PR role, and I had an incredible general manager who, once I had once again kind of got my own role spinning along so I almost didn't have to touch it, he had me deputising and going off to be on committees, etc., for him for things that were happening in Canberra. I got them to meet the most amazing people. My husband at the time too had bought into a business in the press gallery in Parliament House. So I was very, very well connected around Canberra through work and also socially. And I'm good at nurturing relationships. So when I have new ideas, concepts, problems to solve, etc., I go out to experts. Now, one of the things I learnt from being CEO of a startup, I was a CEO of a different startup through COVID. And with the investment, I had just a few people working towards this. But when we had problems that were sort of outside of expertise, we didn't have any resources to deal with that. So I've taken a different approach. What I've done is I've built a team of very senior people who I grab small bites from here and there. So I might pay someone $500 an hour for their expertise, but then I have interns and graduates, etc., in roles that feed up to that. So an example of that is, if I'm not sure if Sarita is on that page, I don't think she is, but we haven't updated our website for a long time. But Sarita is a B Corporation coach who's helping us to make sure we set ourselves up as a B Corp. And so Sarita meets with Josh, who is on there. He's a graduate from Curtin Uni.
Yep.
So just on the left, straight
Josh Dorst. Yep.
Yeah. Now, Josh isn't actually working with us at the moment. He'll come back when we get some more resources and we're at a different stage. But Josh came in and he'd meet with Sarita about once a week, once a fortnight. She would brief him in on what's required next. He'd pull together policies, etc., recraft them according to our sector, work with me on it. They'd go back to Sarita. When we did our first impact assessment for B Corporation, which is when you see how you're acting against the things you say you'll do, 5 pillars, which are environment, people, community, your governance, your financial sustainability, etc. You have to get 80 to be accredited as a B Corp. We got 78, and that was when we only just started. So the way in which we're approaching this is that we're testing, experimenting, we're listening. I've just come back from a 5-week road trip around Australia, meeting with cafes and communities and being in a boot camp to see where the themes are, testing again. And we're building this knowledge bank around it, and we're collaborating and sharing it all. So what I've learnt is you can't do it on your own. You have to collaborate. And so, I draw on these people as and when I need them.
Fantastic. Talking about road trips and East, we've talked about one of your early case studies is the cafe in Bondi. What's been their experience, if we're talking about a year or 2 years or however long it's been going? What have been some of the comments of their customers, and what's been their business experience in terms of the benefits of what you've been doing?
So with Brew Coffee in North Bondi, Sondi did that work herself. So our kinds didn't inform that. But where we're joined together in terms of the movement is that we want to collaborate together to help other cafes do the same.
Get the same effect.
Exactly. So when I met Sondi, she had just gone to 100% reuse, and Hamish was just about to. So we'd been testing in the corner store for about 7 months by then. And Sondi had been working towards it for about 2 years. And we'd each decided that plastic-free July was going to be it. We're going to pull the Band-Aid. Sondi's experience in the previous 2 years, she'd started with about 10 other cafes, and they had a F the Cup program in Bondi. And
I like it. F the cup. Yeah.
And Sarah Wilson was really driving it. But then there were lots of challenges, including COVID, etc., and people slipped away. And Sondi's sort of last man standing in terms of delivering it herself. But she's got this energy, she's got this vision, she's got this determination to make the change. And she can encourage people, bring them on board and make it fun, make it a great experience. So she's built her tribe there, which has been helped by, obviously, the Bondi Salties. Now, the Bondi, people say it's too hard to remember to bring a cup and it won't fit in the car and it won't do this and I need a lid and blah, blah, blah. Well, these Bondi Salties throw themselves in the water. I don't know how many kilometres they swim all through the year, and then they walk about 200 metres uphill to go to Sondi's, brew coffee and buy coffee, and 200 of them between 7 and 8 on a Friday will get a coffee. But where we collaborate is around, it's bigger than us. This is for the world.
Yes.
And in terms of, we learn a lot from Sondi, and the flip side of that is we've been engaging with Mangala and Madhu people here from the Pilbara and the Kimberley.
So is this is Naraya here?
That's right. So Naraya's not actually in the business now. She was earlier. Naraya is an activist, an artist. She's actually leading the Frack Free movement in the Kimberley now.
Right.
So, but we're still very much
So
engaged.
F the cup and F to fracking.
Yeah, exactly. So Sondi's initial inspiration came from a trip to Alice Springs and to Uluru, where she saw the litter there and she thought, I don't want to be contributing to this. This is just heartbreaking. And that's when she decided to eliminate the disposable cup from her cafe. And we were invited by Naraya's family to come up on country with them last year and again this year, actually, but we weren't able to get there this time. But we spent a few days with them up on country, so Sondi came along to that with us. And in our kinds, we've got 5 values we actually live by, and one of them is grounded. We respect the earth on which we live and the people who live here.
Is that here on the page somewhere? Where are the values?
It will be there. It will be there. It's probably, if you go to Our Kinds, back to Our Kinds up top left, I reckon it will be at the bottom of that page.
What we do, the cups and counting, right? Who we're using. It's fantastic.
We don't have them on there.
It might have been on the About Us page, maybe. If I go down the bottom, maybe it was. I think I did see something of our.
Yeah, there they are.
Our values, fantastic.
Yeah, and they're so good. Like, I can roll them off all the time. Grounded, simple, doable, measurable, fun. And when you talk to everyone around the movement about how we approach it, we can prove that all the time. And if we're doing something that can't be tested against that, then we know we're not quite right.
And then here, the other thing is you're calling it a movement. It's not a business. It's actually a movement. And you're engaging people in this, as you say, new habits for the world. This is a global issue. It ties in with the United Nations Sustainable Goals, global goals. So much great things are happening. And I think I saw that model that you've got on the page. I took a picture of this in terms of how you're doing what you're doing, and this right up front to make the single-use takeaway cup redundant globally. Bang. How did you come up with all the values and the first goal? Was that just you, or it was a series of workshops, or what was the process there?
It was Hamish and I. And I have done a lot of strategic planning over the years, and I learned to develop a one-page strategic plan with strategic initiatives in it so that everyone knows it, lives it, breathes it every day, and then it's effective. So we started very much with a strategy. And while our first goal is to make the single-use takeaway cup redundant globally, we knew that we wanted to be single-minded and land something that tested our thinking around this. Our vision is sustainable consumption through design. So once we eliminate the single-use cup, we can apply this to anything in any setting. Now, what we've done with that image on the left is we've just removed all the blockers for the consumers. So consumers don't pay for a cup. All they have to do is bring it back rinsed. So we didn't want any cost, any fines, any tokens. People don't want to download an app. They don't want any privacy issues. So essentially, we help cafes develop mug libraries. They don't have to be, secondhand or different op shop cups. They can be any kind of cup, but we create the habit where people can continue to return them, and we manage that process. The way we came up with Our Kinds was when we realised we couldn't do it on our own. We kept talking about, our kinds of people, our kinds of projects, our kinds of partners. Like, are we going to have some no-go zones, for example? So that's where the Our Kinds kept coming up. And we went, it's Our Kinds, and it's all kinds. And it's meant to be expansive, we don't want to be white-anting anyone. In fact, if there's businesses that, really need to make an enormous shift in their business practices now, and are wanting to make that change genuinely and have the right bold leadership to do it, and say mining, for example, then this is one small area where we could help them, and just one thing. It's a bit like a painter painting a room in a house. You see the other 3 walls that need to be done. When people meet with me and they see I never use a single-use cup, but they see then how that's then applied to the rest of my life, where I never buy plastic. And it's just that one thing leads to another.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk about that, because we talk a lot about Our Kinds, the business. Let's talk about you. Talk about your daily routine, some of the rules that you live by. If we're talking about life by design, leading your best life, let's start with what actually motivates you, Karen. What if we said what motivates Karen Monaghan, what motivates you and why?
I like landing stuff. I like getting stuff done, and I like that to improve people's lives. My overriding passion is to solve homelessness.
All right. Wow.
And that came out of working at Queen Elizabeth Centre, which is an early parenting centre, where I saw incredible programs being run for incredibly vulnerable families where children would have ended up in child protection without this early parenting skills development. That then led on to supporting them in these families in, finding work or study or whatever. They're all everyday life skills where if we grow up in a, resilient families, we don't have to, we grow up learning these things. And what I found was that if these families don't have secure housing, once they've completed these 2-year programs and they're in really great shape and happy and well and thriving, they get drawn back into areas of vulnerability, and they're back on the hamster wheel again.
Wow.
And some of this can be overcome easily, and so that has been sitting with me since then. It's not something that's particularly easy to do. So what I'm, wanting to do is really reinvent my own financial independence through doing this, which I can do very well. I've got all the skills to do this. When we land Our Kinds, I will go onto the board of Our Kinds and build and support the team from there. And then I would love to have a look at the housing situation.
Wow. They talk about you're reminding me of the Matildas and the soccer team. They talk about the why. It wasn't just let's try and win the World Cup. It's the bigger why. They talk about a bigger why, the bigger why of empowering women, being role models, expanding the sport, taking the sport. So it's like you've already talked about here. I think I talk about milestones, investing in milestones that you clearly you've got a range of milestones within the business plan of Our Kinds to then your own personal life as to what that might look like. So if we saw you in 5 or 10 years' time, that might be you in and around the homelessness, landing homelessness, as this whole language of landing like landing a plane, landing the next milestone, landing the business. I like that. In terms of languaging. In terms of your day, how does your day look? What time do you get up? What do you do in the morning? How does your day look? And I suppose they're not all the same day, but as a routine, as a discipline, tell me about, Karen Monaghan, the routine.
I'm an early bird.
How early is early? What do you mean by early?
Varies probably by about an hour in summer and winter, but any time from about 4:45. And what I have learnt over the years is because I have a super active mind, I've had to be very disciplined in creating space. And what I find too is I'll put things that I need to solve into background. So I do that quite deliberately. Whether it's something I need to worry about, I'll say, okay, I'm going to deal with that in worry time. I've heard you. I know you're there, but I'll worry at 3:00.
Right. So you're letting your subconscious mind work on the problem.
Yeah. And so every morning I will wake up with a framing around something, and I might draw that like a mind map, or I might need to write it.
Oh.
And I never really know what that will be. So in the morning I wake up and I exercise first, and that might be yoga, it might be going for a swim, it might be a walk or run. Then I journal.
Interesting.
With coffee.
Journal with coffee. So that's what you were doing that morning after your run when you first met Hamish. The photos, you with your journal. So,
yes,
and
that's
what
right.
happens with the journaling? What are you writing in the journal?
Ideally, I'm visioning my future. So ideally, the journal starts with, I'm sitting on the veranda of my oceanfront home, smelling the smells coming from the kitchen and listening to the noise of the family returning from the surf. We're about to go inside and sit around the dining room table where there'll be about 12 and 14 people sharing stories.
Wow.
So because you have goals to get certain financial milestones, but the lofty goals are all about people.
And you're literally writing your future as if it's actually a written affirmation. Talk about life by design. You're designing it as if it's a long form affirmation. This is happening right now. I'm living it. I'm literally creating that vibration. I'm living it physiologically, psychologically, neurophysiologically. I'm putting that vibration out in the universe right now.
Exactly.
On a daily basis, you're doing that.
Yeah, every day.
Fantastic.
And it might be a paragraph or it might be 7 pages, depending. And as much as possible in place. So I might be sitting in Longview or outside Little Sup or up at City Beach. So that's where I want to be. Now, it could be a shack or it could be, I don't need a mansion. I don't like particularly big houses, but it might be pretty zhushy. Who knows? But it's that place. And that's how I'm experiencing that place. I will also write about, and sometimes it starts with this, if there's something that's really worrying me or concerning me, or I wake up feeling stressed and I can't settle my mind, then I will write that out. I'll just keep writing until I start to kind of calm that.
Wow. So writing, not only in terms of writing the future, but writing as a way of literally calming and almost mindfulness, focusing back and bringing yourself back down out of a high anxiety or elevated anxiety state. Wow.
Yeah, sorry, Leigh, when I'm working across every pillar of the business. And I can't deal with it all at once, but you do have demands from other people that you insist on doing that this day or this week, some of which I also know over time, if it's not really nagging at me, it doesn't need to be done, and 2, it may never need to be done. So I find that writing about some of those things, even if you've got a heightened sensibility about something, but it's not coming from you, but it's causing you initial real stress, at least writing it out and kind of telling yourself, I've got you. You're just number 3 at the moment. And you've got to get out of my head or I can't do 1 and 2.
Yes, and it grounds it, and as you say, all of those things. I've got you, as in you're there, but you're not number 1. So how does your day unfold, and particularly then how does your evening go? Because I'm always interested in, some people wake up, What do they do in their morning rituals, and what do they do as they move towards their sleeping rituals?
Yeah. So I tend to work pretty solidly from 9 till sort of any time up till 3 o'clock if I've got stuff that I've got to write, design, whatever. So a lot of that is actually on screen. I try not to do anything on screen before 9 a.m. because I find it doesn't work for me. I'm not as productive in the day. From about 3 on, I can do meetings and whatever. I do meetings earlier too if required. Then I get my second wind about 4. So then I'll often kind of catch something and be able to, develop a proposal or, a request of someone or a brief for a job or whatever. By about 6, I'm thinking about cooking, and that's actually a way I wind down. I love cooking. I love having people over. I love sharing stories. So, yeah, just cooking, preparing dinner, and then after dinner maybe go for a walk or catch up with someone or watch a movie, whatever, but I don't work at night anymore.
What about reading? Are you a reader? Do you read books?
I am a reader.
What books are you reading at the moment?
I listen a bit to audiobooks at the moment because my mind is so full, so I'm finding it hard. Always in the past I'd read about an hour and a half at night. Print. I've got them here. Michael Singer.
Yes.
Diving into constantly at the moment.
The Untethered Soul and some of those things of Michael Singer, yeah.
And so Michael Singer is really influential in terms of being able to listen into kind of letting things go. I need flow in my day. Yes. And so he's all about letting go of resistance. So a couple of things I listen to that really help me kind of move through days or read Michael Singer and also Napoleon Hill, the Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich, yep.
So as I mentioned to you, what I've learned is that I'm incredibly capable of seeking funds for our kinds and blah, blah, blah. But then when it comes to an ask for me, I give everything away.
Right, okay.
So Napoleon Hill has been really great for me to kind of work through that. Jess Scully used to be the Deputy Mayor of Sydney. She was one of the founders of Livid, the lighting festival in New South Wales. She's written a book called Glimpses of Utopia, where she's looked at models of democracy all around the world and looked at things like data commons where you actually share information instead of this horrible kind of grabbing information and using it for over-marketing of people. How do we kind of share information for good? So she's looked at lots of true democratic platforms for problem solving. That's fascinating. And Overstory, which is essentially, it came out a few years ago, but written by an Aussie. I think he's a philosopher, but the core of all these short stories is about trees, and it's about how they all communicate with each other, etc., and how they interact with the people's lives around them, and how things that happen to trees, like a disease coming from China into a maple tree in Ohio and how that decimates them there, etc. All of those kinds of interactions about how one thing leads to another. So I'm finding Overstory really fascinating at the moment.
Wow, this is a person you haven't been reading much lately, but there's like 3 or 4 books straight away you've been reading and immersing yourself in. And what about over the years coaching and mentoring, people who have played important roles in your life in terms of as a coach or a mentor? Tell me about some of those experiences.
Hey, I'll try and do a one-liner on them because there's many. So David Marshall is GM at Austereo that I mentioned earlier, who was incredible, and I learned about networking with him. Pamela Caddy. Pamela is a corporate affairs professional. She used to be sort of head of corporate affairs for Ansett back in the day, was there when it went under, then National Bank, etc. Really understands kind of the political system and corporate. And everything I'm doing, I work right up to the policy space. And Pamela did some really great work with me, helping me when I was working in production agencies, understanding and engaging with teams differently. And she really flipped how because I'm visionary, ideas driven, quite organic in the way I work. When I would bring work into production companies and be, the client's voice, I could find it really challenging to be dealing with technical directors and the finance folk and whatever that just wanted to shoot it down. And she helped me reframe all that. So now and it really has informed our clients. So I go into meetings saying, tell me all the problems. Tell me all the problems. Because then you fast track your way through them and then they're ready to hear about the innovation. I had Julie, I can't remember her surname, but I came to, she taught me really helped me work out when it was time to leave. I had a job I was really enjoying at one stage. We were doing enormous transformation. I had the support of the board, but the CEO was worn out. And I just realised we weren't going to be able to move it forward and it was time for me to leave, which was a real shame because I was leading.
Which is a great example of, we talk about CEO energy and leadership energy, that they think sometimes they float above it all and that their energy has no impact and that the work is actually done at the operational level. But I literally did a podcast the other day about a CEO who's essentially floating above and not. And I've said to him over the time, mate, you are the heartbeat. You need to actually express your energy impacts. But we see this time and time again where, if the CEO energy or managing director energy is not there, even yesterday I was talking to a guy who said, the managing director doesn't like meetings, so we don't have team meetings. Well, you can just imagine how productive that organisation is, Bob doesn't like meetings. Oh, really? Well, Bob is on the wrong planet, mate, Talk about optimising the performance. They're doing okay, but again, the thinking, the energy of the leader, of course, has a profound impact. They don't float above it all. So give me one or two other mentors or coaches that you've been exposed to.
Pivotal, Christy Russell. So Christy's in Melbourne, and Christy is an old friend of mine, and she has been a C-level coach for 30 years now. And she used to test her new tools on me that never, ever coached friends. It was like a boundary.
Right. Yes.
But I knew she was a tough coach. I knew she would hold you somewhere and not like put her arms around you, because a lot of coaches are like, you're going to be okay, and they kind of build you up like that. But sometimes you just need your nose rubbed in it. Because it's your behaviour.
Yes. I literally did a podcast this week on the Come to Jesus meeting. There's a client I'm going to have a Come to Jesus conversation with, because this guy, I've bent too much, and, if your coaching program loses its integrity, it's a bit like going to the gym saying, look, I want to get fit, but I don't want to do push-ups and I don't want to do sit-ups and I certainly don't want to do that bloody treadmill thing. But other than that, I'll pretty much do anything, particularly if it involves laying down and closing my eyes. You just go, and if the coach goes, okay, no problem, we can do that. Bullshit. It's like, no. And not only that, to come to Jesus, mate, you want to do A, B, and C, but you're doing everything that actually stops you doing A, B, and C. It's time to stop the delusion. Let's call you on your own bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. So I contacted Christy in COVID. So I had come over here with a new relationship from Melbourne. The board of the startup I was leading supported it. I was happy to travel. My family are there. I was going back about every 3 weeks. We were ready to launch in two schools, a gym and a childcare centre when COVID hit.
Wow.
So I was over here and I was needing to figure out whether I needed to go back. When I go back to Victoria, there were just so many unknowns, and my relationship was challenged. And I was missing the kids. I was desperately worried about my older parents. And what do I do about this business? It really needs to be in people's lounge rooms. There was an app to introduce parents to share childminding. So I texted Christy and just said, look, I know you're not a therapist, but I've got all of this personal stuff that's also interacting with, being able to lead this business through COVID. I've led through unknowns before. I knew I could do it. I believed in myself to be able to do that, but I also knew I needed backup. And everyone was scared at that time. Often when you're facing a challenge, you've got other people around you that are okay, they're in a good place. But right then, nobody knew what was going to happen or anything. So Christy, I joined up, I started working with Christy, and it was just fundamental. Like, she had me do a Bob Proctor program. She said, you're going to hate listening to it initially, Karen. It's like cheesy American, whatever. I promise you, once you do this, you'll do less work, not more. They're faster and leaner. And she was right. And so I met with her every week for about 18 months. And there were some times where I could barely handle the conversations. The stuff that I needed to work through and some of the personalities that I was having to deal with was just grueling. And on the flip side, there was all of this kind of incredible opportunity despite COVID, because the model that we were developing was perfect if we needed to create those bubbles. It could apply in all sorts of different situations. So I was really like...
Well, we call it perturbating. You were perturbating. You're under a lot of pressure. Something was going to pop. So what? At the end of the day, did that business land, and what happened to you in terms of your relationship with Victoria and the family? What was the final pop in that? What's the resolution?
So I ended up getting locked out of Perth 3 times. So first time for about 10 months, then for a month, then for a fortnight. The relationship was on and off even through that. Didn't make it in the end, but we gave it a good hard crack. I'd already started Our Kinds here by the time, I split there. So I decided to just stay here, really make it work. And I love the WA lifestyle.
There's so many great mentors there. Let's just begin wrapping up, because we've been going over an hour, so we better start moving to a close, even though clearly we could talk a lot longer. Is there any question I haven't asked you yet that you'd like, or a point, that anything we'd like to cover before we move into the home straight?
Oh, wow. I guess if anyone's wondering if they could get involved with Our Kinds, yes, it's a movement. So yes, there are so many different ways in which you can support it. Jump on our Instagram or our Facebook. There
it is here. You've got join the movement there on the website.
On there. The website it really doesn't reflect where we are right now, but I'm not updating that just yet.
That's okay. And people can contact you here. You're on, as you say,
there's
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Yep.
LinkedIn.
Yep.
Great. And there's a range of blog articles there. But as you say, you can see this because you're continuing to evolve. But from my point of view, and again, design-wise, it's a lovely website with a lot of great things on it. So great work. So people want to get involved. Touch base via any of these mechanisms: the contact form, the join the movement, the Instagram, the LinkedIn, the Facebook. That's fantastic, Karen. Mate, there's so many great things you've talked. I mean, I've got notes here. Purpose-driven entrepreneur, deliberate in my choices, visionary. I can see it. I can taste it. I can. No single cup. It's a global issue. It's a new habit for the world. This is a global vision, but it really all comes back to, as you say, life by design. And as you say, you guys as designers, it's like if we can redesign this, we can redesign a whole lot of other things as well. And you talked about pivot points, times and milestones. I love that point where you talked about investing in milestones. Like, what's the next milestone we need to invest in? And your language around landing things, and also your language in and around journaling, as if you're writing a letter from the future to the now, which is just beautiful. So, Karen, thank you so much for your time. We're talking about leading your best life. You've given a whole range of fantastic tips here today. And, whatever we can do to support you with Our Kinds, we certainly will at Pod Squad and what I do. I mean, in terms of the depression situation, we have our men's mental health group called it Blokes Talk Beachside. The next meeting is on Monday night. And again, our vision there is that'll happen in surf clubs all around Australia, where guys get together and talk and get mechanisms to be able to actually deal with their depression, knowing that, as you say, 40% of men have never even spoken about their mental health or their internal world to anyone. So we're creating a safe place for guys to talk about where are they at, what's bugging them, what's on their shoulders, what rocks are they carrying that they need to let go of.
Yeah, it's so important. So
yeah. Karen, thank you so much for your time, and we'll stay in touch and share this. This will go out, and it's going to be really useful for men and women, no doubt about it, what you're talking about here. Thanks for your time today, Karen.
Thanks, Leigh. Bye.
All the best. Bye.
Thank you.